How are we doing? How are we all on this fine Tuesday? It is truly one of the Tuesdays of all time. I'm back with a tier list. It has been a hot minute since I've done one of those. But obviously I played this weekend just gone with the Chaos Dwarves. Just all the crap you can see in my background. And I thought it was a good time to talk about them as Renegades. Hope you are all doing well. Good to see you, Sam. Don't forget to like and share the stream. Appreciate you doing my job for me, because I forget a lot of the time. Brian says, or Ed will eat his hat. His suspiciously tall hat, given that we're talking Chaos Dwarves. Yeah, if you are here and you haven't already, please do like and all of that good stuff. Who here has been testing the new Renegades? Is there a good level of excitement for them? I've definitely got some thoughts now that I think I'm about 7 games into the Chaos Dwarf Renegades document. Although I tested things after submitting my list, so there was no pre-thought when we went. Good to see you, Colin. Not a lot of games, but some. Nice. Nice. You've played one game with various units. Hell yeah. Good to hear. Yeah, so like I think while we wait for things to, in fact, you know what? Let's have a look. How do we feel? Let's start with, have you tested the new shorts? Let me know in the chat how things are. Definitely. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a fun one. I've been having a great time with it. I will say that I don't think that the power level has massively gone up. Would be my initial take on it. Is I don't think the power level has massively, or maybe even gone up at all. It's hard. It's very hard to say that it hasn't gone up at all, but I don't think it's noticeably gone up in terms of how I'm feeling about it. I would say there are a lot more fun things in there. Actually, list building. I'm now not thinking that you have to run 3 to 47 models every time, which is good. You're really wondering when draft version 2.0 comes out? Yeah, so this is the first one that I've actively engaged with Val on, in terms of like sending him directly some feedback. Partially because he had to establish a method of communication with me that I wouldn't just leave him without responding for 3 weeks, which, sorry, mate. But also because it's the one that I have the most thoughts about. So there's definitely some stuff that I know he's looking to change. I had asked him to rush through some changes for this weekend, just gone, and he didn't end up having time to do so, which is fair enough. It was a little last minute. But the one thing that he's talked about publicly in one of the group chats I'm in is the Castellan, allowing you to take the the Infernal Ironsworn in core. It was unintended that would lock you out of being able to take any of the monsters, because obviously the Castellan is T9, and then we've got the, sorry, not T9, Leadership 9, T9, not anymore, can't take triple Mantle of Stone. The Castellan is Leadership 9, is what I was trying to say. And obviously, if you've got the various units that you want to run the monsters on, the Overseer and the Sorcerer Prophet are Leadership 10. So they have to be a general, which means you can't take the Ironsworn. Yeah, so that's basically where I'm at with that. So there's some changes coming. The Ironsworn will be playable in core. I think there's probably some changes that need to happen. I've fed some feedback back to Val, and I should probably feed some more back. Ben says, played a game, thought Burning Body was arguably too strong, everything else fine, I missed the old Darkforged weapon. Yeah, so I think the Darkforged weapon is something that he's got his eyes on, because I told him there's no way I was paying 25 points for the current version. I'd, rather just pay 10 points for the version that exists currently in the Legacy book. Blazing Body feels great. I will say, Blazing Body does feel incredible. I don't want to say that it feels too strong, but it definitely feels very good. So I can see what you're saying there. They're in an interesting space, I think. the Chaos Dwarf monsters, because obviously the way that they're positioned is that they shouldn't win direct fights with bigger stuff. They cost less, although the Sorcerer Prophet does start to get pretty pricey. So on that basis, that's not the design space they're in. But they are a monster that can kind of just go willy-nilly into the front of a unit, especially now that Blazing Body is better, because you might snipe the unit champion. Now you might get some combat res from the Blazing Body, and if you do fail, you can just stubborn backwards and then go back into it next turn when the unit champion's dead. So I think that's interesting. You enjoyed the Bull Centaurs, felt much more hitty. Yeah, they're one that's on my list. I don't have a firm opinion on them because I haven't managed to playtest them. They feel like they should be better. They definitely feel like they should be better, but I'm not 100% sure because I haven't tried them myself. You still want to make the Ironhide Talisman work? I think the Ironhide Talisman can work. You can put that on... My brain's just turned off. I'm like 99% sure you can put it on the whatchamacallit. Oh, God. The Torok. The Bull Center Torok. I'm pretty sure it's just infantry and cavalry only. It doesn't restrict you to non-monstrous cavalry. Ironhide. Oh, no. I'm thinking I Can Afford You, because they came out at the same time and they're right next to each other in that book. I always confuse them. Ironhide Talisman, where you make them re-roll hits and wounds. Sorry, not wounds. Wounds of a 6 against shooting and combat. I don't really see the value in it. I know that Tom B tried it. And was pretty unimpressed, but because it can only go on infantry, I think you're going to really struggle to get the most value out of it. The place that I could see this would be if you could do something like get a monstrous infantry character like a Doom Bull, give them some sort of fly, like maybe through lore familiar wizard hat on a wizard that already exists, take necromancy, give them the spectral steed so that they have a remains in play fly spell on them, and then they can fly around solo. I think it's just really hard to make work on anything that's yeah. Ben says Blazing Body's definitely better. In a better spot, would like to see a tweak. I played against elves and just melted a front rank of silver helms, even though they charged me. Fair. I think they shouldn't have charged you. It's a difficult one, because elves are going to fall over to that sort of rule in general. Which, does that mean that we can't have that rule on the unit? Or is it more just an indictment of the fact that elves are squishy, and even though they should be kind of like a glass cannon style army, they're missing the cannon and they're just the glass, which is an elf problem as opposed to a Chaos Dwarf problem. But I don't think the Silver Helm should have charged the front of a Taurus, realistically, because that's just a fight they're going to lose. Don't know what it needs. Need to make it happen. Initiative, don't call combat rares, make it round 3. Yeah, I could see, like, I'd like to see more testing on it before it gets knocked back down. But I could see it being a little bit overcooked, I think. It did feel very good at Strength 4 AP1. Strength 4 AP1 in Old World is just like, oh wow, that's actually a really solid amount of output. Yeah, else just pants. Yeah, exactly, and that's the opinion that we should have here at the Chaos Dwarf live stream. So, if you're here and you haven't already, please do give the stream a thumbs up. Helps me get picked up by the algorithm, all of that good stuff. Links in the description if you want to get Discount Warhammer, whether that is through Element Games. I've got a referral link, and also there's now a code you can put in to get extra store credit points. I think they call them like Element Gems or something. I can't remember the name of them, honestly. Obviously, there is a link to Beowulf Miniatures website as well. If you want 3D printed models, you can use close order, no space in there for 10% off. And yeah, I do coaching. Thank you for watching. Let's get to it. So, is the ranking from the perspective of Chaos Dwarves or from the perspective of playing against Chaos Dwarves? I don't know that you could rank from the perspective of playing against them. And also, theoretically, it should be the same, right? Because if we're looking at it from the competitive standard, and I've actually tweaked the tiers. So this is basically the same S tier all the way through to F tier, but I thought it'd be easier if I just spelled out what it was. So basically, if you're in the top tier, you should probably, if you're writing a Chaos Dwarf list, you'll probably have this in every list, unless you're doing something that's like very specific. Competitive stable, it's going to be in most lists, or like in, you know, half the list. It's something that's very good. You're going to consider it as a choice, and maybe the reason that you don't take it is there are 2 competitive staples that do a similar sort of thing. solid. That was the old B tier. It's good. You can play it. It's like, well, it's decent. You can play it. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just a workhorse unit. You're not upset to have it. It's fine. Weak, the old C tier. This is the sort of stuff where you're like, this is just kind of pants. But it doesn't make my list actively worse for running it. And then unplayable is unplayable competitively. Remember, this is all competitively. This is just in terms of the perspective of someone who goes to a good amount of tournaments, looks at the list building from a competitive standpoint. If you like a unit and I put it in the unplayable tier, that doesn't mean you can't play it, but maybe you just have to bring it, if you don't bring it to a tournament, perhaps, or if you want to, feel free to, but understand that it is going to do a lot less, and it's going to have an opportunity cost where you could have spent those points on something else. Bone Grinder Giant. Let me drag that one back out. We'll get to the Bone Grinder Giant. I've got them. I wanted to try to make this as readable as possible. I've gone through various iterations of the Cathay was unplayable to play against. Yeah, but that's not okay. There's no rating of a tier list for your opponent. I don't think that works as a premise, other than just you do it the other way round, right? So like all the stuff that would be in here would be down here. Anyway, so I've gone with color-coded for which section of the Force org they're in. So, you got your characters in blue, yada yada. And went with names. I wanted to put pictures in, but I thought this was a good opportunity to try just using it as actual, what the name of the unit is to make it readable. Keep a consistent text size, because there's not really that many, or like getting pictures is difficult because they're an older range, and I'd probably end up putting some 3D prints in some bits and pieces. Where's Infernal Guard? Have I not put Infernal Guard in there? Ah, no. Good spot. Good spot. That is... I'm sure I made one for Infernal Guard. What I've done is just not saved that. Because it turns out the way that you do this is you just... you make them all manually. And then you download them. And then you add them. So I'm glad you noticed that before I did, or before I got to that point, because we can do it before we get started properly, and then I can forget to put a timestamp in. But Infernal Guard, right? That's the one I'm missing. Guard, yeah. Infernal Guard. Make the font the right size. Boom, and then make the background the correct color, so it all looks the same, which was... there we go. Boom. Download that. Sweet. And then if I just add it into the correct folder, that should... This is the professional standard that you come here for. Tell you what, you forget to do, you don't do a tier list for a little while, and then you immediately forget what you're doing. Let's just add in the Infernal Guard. There we go. Boom! Nailed it. That'll do. Alright. Now seems like a good time to get started. So, I'm just going to go left to right, and then I'll throw in the occasional one, because I think that's probably the way to do things. Let's start off with the Sorcerer Prophet. The Sorcerer Prophet is the wizard. It's, this is sort of the classic unit you'd expect to see if we're talking Chaos Dwarves traditionally. You'd kind of expect to see the Sorcerer Prophet. They're a lot more, in my mind, emblematic of what Chaos Dwarves are as a faction. They're led by the wizards as opposed to being led by the melee characters, which is very different to how you see most armies. In terms of the changes for the Renegades draft, they went down in points a little bit because they were very pricey, and they got battle magic added to them. I think if we go back, let's say a year, and just to like the first year of Old World, if you went back to then, before the nerf to Pillar of Fire, you could probably make a competitive build with just Legacy Chaos Dwarves if they had battle magic. That's how good Pillar of Fire was. You could have played some sort of like here's artillery, here's some wizard spam, maybe like an Iron Demon to try and tie things up and just put cheap infantry in front of them. Like, that would probably be capable of going 4-1 at a tournament, and obviously the sky's the limit from there. They are pretty good, I think, the sorcerers. I would expect to see them in most lists. One of the nice changes that we've seen for Renegades is that the reroll for an artillery die, the scatter or artillery die, used to be for just the war machines, but now it is for anything in range that uses those, which basically just means you're able to use it on your Iron Demon. I obviously, well, not obviously, I played a tournament this weekend. There'll be a video up on Thursday talking about my experiences at the Riverland event, which was fun, so I'll be talking about that as well. I ended up coming second, so I had a pretty good set of results, I would say, this weekend. And I think this is something that you probably want to build into your list. So this is the Sorcerer Prophet and the Demon Smith Sorcerer. The Sorcerer Prophet itself is pretty good. The Demon Smith Sorcerer is cheap. It's 85 points, which is not like cheap. But if we're talking, you're looking for an engineer that also can cast spells and also can do stuff like provide leadership for the levy units of hobgoblins, Hobgoblin Cutthroats. If you're going for cheap core infantry units there, you can just stick the Sorcerer Prophet in one of them, give them leadership 9 that's immune to, any of the problems that you normally suffer that way. I think that's pretty good. So the Sorcerer Prophet, to me, I don't know if it makes it into every tournament list. I think you can very comfortably drop it, but I'd say it's like bottom of every tournament list, top of competitive staple. I think it's more of a preference, but I would say out of all the ways I think you can build Chaos Dwarves, there's really one I can see where you don't bother with a Sorcerer Prophet, which is where you just go for as many combat characters as possible. And then also, like, if you're trying to fit in 47 at like 2,000 points, you could go double Overseer on Taurus and then double Iron Demon. And that's probably cheap enough that you can make that work. And you just accept that you haven't got the Sorcerer Prophet. You're playing into, if you're playing into Beastman, you can't get Vile Tided, so you don't need the magic resist there. Or the magic defense, I should say, that you get for bringing a wizard. So I think you can get away without running one, but I'd say it's maybe actually every tournament list, bottom of every tournament list, every bottom of competitive staple. Brian says, you think that one issue with their wizards is they only have one engineer ability instead of 2. How do you mean? What second engineer ability would they have? Do you mean as in like the ability to not get shot if they're nearby? Short Life doesn't run one. Short Life I accurately named for Chaos Dwarves. I think you can get away without running them. I just think they're very, very good. And if you're running the T7 build, I can see not running one. If you're trying to make infantry work, or if you're trying to make artillery work, I think they work really well there. And even if you're still running the Bale Taurus, I think you're very comfortable running one. The one that I ran this weekend, I went Mantle of Stone, Talisman of Protection, and I always forget the name of it. The new item that just lets you reroll one casting roll every turn, so you'd very consistently get Storm of Ash off. That felt great. Honestly, like Empire Engineers could reroll a die or boost ballistic skill. Okay. I think for Chaos Dwarves, I don't know that I feel like they need that because they've got so many sources of reroll, and you can also have the rerolls moving up the board with you. So you can reroll on the Iron Demons as well. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really considered it. So Sorcerer Prophet, probably top of competitive staple. Demon Smith Sorcerers, even though I've just said that I like them, I think I'd put them in B tier. Obviously, talking about them both together at a reasonable amount. If you look at an Empire Engineer, it's what, 40 points, 45 points? It's in that benchmark. 85 points for a Demon Smith Sorcerer, and you can take Battle Magic, which doesn't give you a spell, like the signature spell. If you're going for a level 1 wizard, you really need the signature spell to be good. So Battle Magic is Hammer Hand. That's no good if you're sitting in the backfield. Elementalism it doesn't have a spell as a signature, effectively. Demonology has the summoning, but if you're bodyguarding all of the stuff at the back, 18-inch range, and, you need to roll an 8 on the dice to cast is not great. And then there's Dark Magic as well for a worse but easier to cast magic missile. It's the template one. I don't really love any of those, but I think what it brings as a whole package is good enough to consider running one if you want to run multiple artillery. And I actually think that part of how my list played out this weekend, I do wish that I had a level 1 Sorcerer Prophet that I could have just hidden behind the artillery or something like that. Alright, so those are the wizards. Overseer. Overseer and Despot. These are interesting. So obviously Val has just taken the stat line from the actual regular dwarf unit for these and added these and then moved the Castellan to being sort of like a half and half, between the hero and lord tier character spot. I wasn't really sure why I did that at the time. I will say, having put them on the table, I actually quite like that he did, even though I'm still not sold on needing to have like a halfway hero. I think it feels really good on the tabletop. So we'll get to that, especially when we talk about the Castellan. But in terms of the Overseer and the Despot, I think generally there is more here to like than dislike. The big downside that an Overseer has is that you've lost the Strength 5, whereas previously you were, Strength 7 with a great weapon, and obviously more talking about this in terms of having a character on a Bale Taurus flying around. The Taurus itself does an okay amount of damage, especially now that Blazing Body's a little bit better. But if you were going into something like an enemy dragon, you kind of were leaning on that Strength 7 great weapon to get a couple of points of combat res back, trying to limit things. You're now weapon skill 7, so you're less likely to get hit. But if we're talking about the most common dragons, which is like the Exalted Champion on a Chaos Dragon, both of those were weapon skill 6 anyway. So they were going to be hitting you on 4s even before, when it was the Castellan on Bale Taurus. So yeah, it's a bit of a side grade in terms of stat-wise. But being weapon skill 7 and having access to Storm of Ashes, just a spell that you can cast on your Sorcerer Prophet on a 9, if you build into it, I think is a very strong combo. So when I played this weekend with a Sorcerer Prophet and an Overseer both on Bale Taurus, getting the reroll on Storm of Ash, I very consistently managed to make things not hit me too much. Even the Bloodthirster didn't worry me too heavily. Like, you'd expect a Bloodthirster with the flail, which does multiple wounds D3, that's strength 9 on the charge, all of that stuff. You'd expect that to get through your Taurus, but because of the Storm of Ash layering, it gave me a level of defense that I was happy with. So that feels pretty solid. Weapon skill 7 and strength 5 is usually better and it makes more durable versus dragons. I don't agree. And I've put them into quite a lot of dragons. The Castellan, the weapon skill 6 version, as I say, previously, a lot of the time, I was finding that it was going to be hit on 4s anyway. It's basically high elves, which were the big problem. Because I'm kind of not too worried about the Lord hitting me on 3s. Or 4s with Storm of Ash. It's really the dragon with its massive amount of attacks. So I really like the strength 7 because you'd find that a lot of the attacks would bounce off you, and then you could maybe get a couple of attacks back in, and then you might win combat, especially if you've managed to get some combat res in the flank. I prefer it the other way around. What I will say, big change here, which I didn't mention for Sorcerer Prophets actually, and it frees up the way that you build your characters in terms of their loadouts. Black Shard armor, just giving you a flat +1 to your armor save, feels so good. Because I was running around with an Overseer with the Armor of Destiny, which is heavy armor that gives you a 4-up ward save, and I had a 4-up armor save. I couldn't even afford a shield. Like, I probably could have tweaked around the list a little bit more to get closer, but I was kind of not bothered enough. There was, I think, one matchup where I wish I had the shield against shooting. Obviously, generally, to find that 2 points, But in this case, it was just, I'd get into combat, I was weapon skill 7, I had a 4-up armor save, a 4-up ward save, most things were bouncing off me, even more than were bouncing off me before. And the Sorcerer Prophet as well, inbuilt heavy armor plus the +1 that you get from Black Shard armor. Getting the Sorcerer Prophet to a 4-up armor save frees up points where you don't have to pay for something along the lines of Armor of Meteoric Iron or whatever, because you've already got that greater level of inbuilt defense. And that's how I had the points to buy the reroll cast item. So I think that's a really strong point in favor of the new rules. Evening, Lee. Doing well, thank you. Hope you're doing well as well. Good to see you, Phil, also. Armor of Bazarak the Cruel is now 40 points. You can have Overseer, plus Bale, plus Armor, plus Talisman of Protection, plus Mantle. That's a 3 up armor save, a 5 up ward, T7 MR2 Blackshot armor. Very good. Yeah, I really like Blackshot armor. It feels fantastic. That's a real, like, solid quality of life upgrade for this, which I do like. I do like. So yeah, Overseer. I think the Overseer stat line change kind of a side grade. The Blackshot armor is really nice. I do like it. I honestly probably need to look at taking the Naphtha bombs more. Just having something that you can throw at your opponent in a stand and shoot, or if you can march and shoot with them, because they're basically just ripped from the nerfed version of bombs that you get for Cathay. I think that's probably a good upgrade that I should look to put on there, and that might just tip things a little bit more in my favour. So definitely something I'm going to think about. And then obviously Blazing Body as well, if we're talking the Taurus. All good stuff. I don't love them on foot. So obviously the stat line of the Overseer is that they are a Dwarf King. And you might go, oh, great, well, dwarves can do, like, incredible Death Stars. They can put characters in units that can kind of go toe-to-toe with dragons. The problem is you don't have the shield bearers. You can do fun stuff with the items. I think the items available mean that you can build really kick-ass foot characters. The problem is you've only got 3 wounds, whereas if we're comparing it to the shield bearers, having those extra 3 wounds, and then also additionally some attacks that you can make into just the challenge that you're in, does make quite a bit of a difference, I think. So yeah, and also no d6 wounds on your regular attacks, but you could do some sort of magic weapon if you wanted to. So I'm not sold on the Overseer specifically as a foot character, but we'll get to the Despot as to when you might want to take one. But they've also got the I've forgotten the name of it. It's not Infernal Taskmaster. It's the plus movement rule. It was called Relentless March. Take a leadership test, and then one unit that is infantry or cavalry within command range, so 12 or 18 for a general if they're on the mount, gets plus D3 to their movement characteristic. This is I ummed and ahed about this when I was looking at them for the first time, and I don't think it's like overpowered. I think it feels good. I was doing marching column shenanigans with Dwarf Warriors, and getting plus 2 inches of movement to them, suddenly you've got a unit that's just marching 15 inches as a dwarf. I'm like, oh, you know what? I can get somewhere with this. So I really like the Overseer. I think I would say you don't have to put it in every list, though, which is interesting. I actually don't think there's any characters that I would put in every tournament list. I could see you running double Sorcerer Prophet or double Overseer, or especially... And I'm going to rate the Castellan, assuming that it's fixed to probably be Leadership 10 or whatever Val wants to do to make it so that all of the interactions work, so you can run that as your general and get the Infernal Ironsworn or however he wants to work it. But I don't think any of the characters are pure, you have to run them in every tournament list, which I think is great. I think having that level of choice is really nice. Overseer on Bale, Relentless March, using an 18-inch bubble is sick. Yeah, it's really nice. Fortunately, it's only one unit as opposed to being like a full army bubble. I think if it was the full army bubble, it would be a bit abusive. But I put them here, and I think I like them more than Sorcerer Prophet. But I think it's very 1A, 1B. Like, I like both of them. I think they're both very, very good. Too well balanced, so there's no single good tournament list. What an incredible problem to have in the drought of Old World 2026. It means that I can spend however many hours thinking about Chaos Dwarves and not get bored, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think it's well balanced. Then we've got the Despot. So the Despot is the hero level character, the Thane equivalent, and it still has the rule where you get the plus movement. Obviously, it's command range, so it's a 9-inch range on Relentless March, or if you're a BSB, 12 inches, because that's just what your command range becomes. You've got Blackshard armor. You've got built-in, heavy armor plus Blackshard armor plus shield, so you're 3 up for 67 points, which is not much at all. You can very comfortably, go for Armor of Bazarak the Cruel or something like that, and then throw on a Charmed Shield. Then you've got a 2-up armor save, magic resist 2, and a single 5-up ward save, which is like all of the stats I kind of want on a BSB. I want to not die. I want to have magic resist. Like, magic resist is usually the stat that you put on the character that doesn't need to do a thing. You're bringing it for static buffs, right? So sometimes you'll be like, oh, my wizard has spare points, I'll put it on there. You don't really want to go, here's my fighty lord. I don't want to put the magic resist on there if it's costing 40 points for MR2. So, yeah, I think the Despot's in a really solid spot there. I really like it. T5, weapon skill 6, leadership 9. I think this can go in a real good range of units. There's loads of great banners that you can put on this thing. You can, anything from Monster Hunter Tapestry all the way up to the Lamasu's Beard, which is really solid, because the Lamasu's Beard gives you that bubble, and it's a very small bubble, so you have to be careful when you play around with this. Giving you magic resist on the unit, and also in a bubble, it's only MR1 in the bubble, and it's a 5-up ward against shooting, I believe, off the top of my head, and a 6-up ward in combat. Just a good model to have, and a good range of things that you can put on there. It's got Stubborn. Stubborn's not important. I meant it's got Rallying Cry. That's the one that I'm going for. So yeah, I think the Despots are very good, and I'm going to struggle to put it into my lists purely because I like doing T7 dumb stuff. But I think it's up here. I think it's a competitive staple, because if you want to run the infantry, then this enables it. So if you're running any infantry, this makes the infantry so much better, and you could very comfortably, run, for example, Sorcerer Prophet and then Despot, and you don't have to take the Overseer. So that, in my mind, puts it in a good spot as well. In terms of builds, I think great. You can keep it cheap. If you want to run the Hobgoblins, we'll talk about Hobgoblins, and I actually think Hobgoblins have fallen off in value. But Hobgoblins having Levy means that they're going to struggle to not run away, especially if someone hits them with anything with first charge, for example, because Hobgoblins just do not love that, losing their Horde Warband leadership bonus. A 60, Charm Shield, Great Weapon, 72 points for a 3 attack model with a Great Weapon and Charm Shield is very good. I said 3 and I remember the movement stat, so it would slow the Hobgoblins down, but you can increase the movement because you've got your Relentless March. Extra move really helps. Really helpful to score an objective turn 1 as well. 100%. That's something that in my 3 previous Chaos Dwarf events I played, I had felt the effect of. If you can only move 6 inches, you might not get in range of an objective turn 1. In fact, I think you shouldn't. I'd have to do the maths on that. It depends on the map, I guess. But yeah, no, it's nice, and it also means that you can contest for objectives more. So actually, I think you should be able to edge in, depending on where terrain is, but you might find that actually you need to move further in to take your opponent off them. So yeah, Despot, pretty solid. Pretty solid. Castellan. This is the halfway house character. This is your between hero and lord character, and I generally really like these because they tend to be more budget. They have a little bit more magic item allowance. Like, I often don't spend 100 points on magic items on characters, but I often want a little bit more than 50. So 75 points is usually enough for me to do what I want. And most importantly, they have 3 wounds. I hate characters only having 2 wounds because they're so easy to pop in combat. I find them very, very risky to run. Whereas a 3 wound model, very nice. Again, it's coming with all of the stuff that you'd expect to see. It's got the Black Shard armor on there, so you're getting +1 to your armor save. As mentioned, Bazarak the Cruel is a great loadout that you can put on there. The armor, that is, which gives you the magic resist 2. It's full plate, so you get up to a 3-up armor save. If you go for a charm shield as well, then you can just tank stuff on the chin very easily. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much to Beowulf Miniatures. Really appreciate the support there. I'll be talking to you tomorrow, I guess, buddy, as well. If you have been gifted a membership, please do say thank you in the chat, and do come on down to the Discord and post in the Needs Roll channel, where I can apply your role, and you can see the VIP section on Discord as well. Brian says, I'm very on the fence about Taskmaster for Dwarves because you aren't getting the charge a lot, and I feel like you can take too much damage before you get to use it. Not how I feel. Here's the thing. I had 2 games where it felt incredible, out of 5. And then the other 3 games, I think I got some use out of it in like 2 of the other ones, but like it wasn't blown away. Yeah, Infernal Taskmaster, I think is very, very good, but it depends what you're putting it on. So the Castellan 75 points base for a Lord level character is already kind of nuts, I would say, if we're comparing it to the Despot. It's weapon skill 6, strength 5, only T4, which is an odd dwarf stat line, but whatever, I'll take the strength 7 great weapon attacks. 3 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 9, all good stuff there. Great weapon available, going to be taking one of those, and 75 points of magic items, all of that. The ensorcelled weapons as well, so you've got some inbuilt protection against ethereal if you need to deal with that for whatever reason. They've got the Quell Panic rule that the Ironsworn have. You've got Rallying Cry on there as well, so if you're just trying to keep your lines from running, especially those hobgoblins, if you're going down that sort of line. And Infernal Taskmaster, which is basically the Infernal Taskmaster rule that you get on the Necrotects for Tomb Kings, but in this case, it's a once per game ability. And once per game feels limiting, but I think it feels limiting in a fun way. I think I'd quite like to see some more strong rules brought in, but limited to once per game. Because having to choose when to use it, I think adds an interesting level of competitive depth without just being like, the obvious thing to do is just take triple Castellan, load them up in a Death Star, see the shadows around the board, and just go around and, lawnmower things. Which is kind of what I'd thought about as the first level of entry when I saw this rule before I realised that it was a once per game. So yeah, I was really impressed. You kind of want to combo this with other things. So I feel like a Castellan is not the only melee character you want to run. You probably want to run some sort of Chaos Dwarf Lord, because having the ability to also give them Relentless March to get them into position is really nice. Or you might want to combo it with something like an Elementalism caster, so you can TMP them forwards, you can TMP them forwards and Earthen Ramparts them, and then when you win combat, obviously if you're giving ground and then your opponent rejoins the combat, so after that point you've lost your Earthen Ramparts, you'll be in a continued combat, so you wouldn't get the Hatred, which is, I did realise I didn't tell you what the Infernal Taskmaster does, +1 attack and Hatred for the until your next start of turn. So it gives you a really big combat boost, especially for weapon skill 4 dwarves with, strength 3 or strength 4 great weapons. It's a really nice buff there. When I played it, game 1, my opponent was playing a big unit of Cold One Riders for Lizardmen with the Totem of Wrath in, and I looked at where they were. I preemptively used my Infernal Taskmaster, even though I wasn't going to be in combat on my turn. My opponent charged me. They hit moderately hard, but they whiffed a little bit, and then in return, I killed all but one of their Lizardmen. So, all but one of the Cold Ones. It felt really good there. That was like, even if I'd lost a couple more models, just being able to swing back with Hatred was really nice there. And obviously, if you lose your front rank, you still get to fight with the back rank. At a bit less effectiveness because it's not the front fighting rank and you're stepping forwards, but your character in there as well, having just 4 great weapon attacks and weapon skill 6 rerolling hits, that's going to take its pound of flesh as well with strength 7. So yeah, that felt really nice. I was very impressed with how that worked out. And then also, I think it was the Demons game, where, no, not the Demons game, it was the last game when I was playing into, what was it in game number 5? I was playing into Beastman. That was it. And there was a big Death Star of, two medium Death Stars of Gore. And I tied it up on the first round, but I didn't use the Infernal Taskmaster because my opponent had Earthen Ramparts. And then I just continued up into combat and popped it on my turn after the Earthen Ramparts had fallen off. And even without the rerolls, because I was fighting in 2 ranks, I was getting a lot of output there. And got a lot of value out of it. So I really like it. I think it felt good. Castellan could really use Veteran. So this is an interesting, maybe, discussion to have in general. I like the inconsistency. I lost game 4, I think mostly due to my artillery underperforming. 3 pieces of artillery over the entire game did 3 wounds. 2 of the 3 got the can't shoot this turn or next turn on the first turn of the game. And that's just Warhammer. That's Warhammer Fantasy. I don't really want this to turn into 40k, where we've got incredible levels of consistency. I think that's probably something that we want to avoid. Having the inconsistency sucks from sort of like trying to build a list that functions every game, but it's also more fun. Like, you get the stories where you're just like, everything went wrong. Oops, guess that sucks for me. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, the Veteran would make it better, but I think on Leadership 9 you're already doing pretty well, and maybe if it goes up to Leadership 10, with however Val wants to fix the Infernal Ironsworn issue, Leadership 10, you're failing that very rarely. But yeah, Castellan. I really like the Castellan, and you're going to see here that it goes up into competitive staple. I think it's really good. If you're running Dwarves, which I think I am more likely to do than running Hobgoblins now, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Warriors, it feels good. If you've got the spare points for it, great. If you haven't, sure. Like, it's a removable character, but I feel like what it brought over the course of the weekend was very valuable to me. Then we're going to go to the Bull Center Torok. I wish you could try to use Taskmaster again if you failed the leadership test. Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of a question on how that style of ability should work, I guess, in terms of things like the Horn of Isha, this Infernal Taskmaster. There's a variety of rules that are take a leadership test. If you pass, you get to use it, but it's once per game. Torok. Not much has changed on the Torok. The only thing that I can think of is that you can't go to T7 because Mantle of Stone doesn't stack, which, I don't know. The T7 Torok was something that people played and I've talked about, but I'm not sure that I was super in love with it because it was really expensive. If you wanted to go Great Weapon, Charm Shield, Double Mantle of Stone, it's like 210 points, give or take, something like that, which is very pricey. So you've lost the ability to go to T7, so you're more vulnerable to various things. But on the flip side, you're more likely to look at other items, and also because Black Shard Armor exists, you're now at a 2-up armor save. So you're T5, 4 wounds, 2-up armor save, as long as you buy a shield. So if you want to go cheap and just go Great Weapon, Charm Shield for 154 points, you have a unit that is running around T5, 2-up save, a single ward save, so you can try and, catch that cannonball on his shield. Or you could even put the Icon of Fortitude on there as well, make you immune to multiple wounds. I think that's a very legit build if you're trying to get into the back line, threaten war machines. It's movement 7, Swift Stride. It's got D3+1 impact hits. It's got Stubborn on there. It causes fear, so you're not worried about going in. You can charge into the side of something to try and hold them up and not worry too much about it. Although you are only unit strength 3, so you're not disrupting them. Psych, it's got first charge, you are disrupting them. So I think there's a lot of really fun stuff on here. I like them. Do I put a 5th character in competitive staple? I think I'm gonna... someone suggested 5 attacks for the Torek. Now that the Render Champ has 4 attacks, might be too good. I can see that. I can see that as a suggestion. I don't think it needs it. I think where it is already very good. And I think it's a good character, but I actually think it maybe doesn't fit into the competitive staple tier, just because it's hard to fit in points-wise. So arguably, maybe some of these other characters should jump down, or I should move this up. But I'll leave it at the top of B, solid for now. So I think it's very solid. I think it's very good. I like what it does. But when I've been writing lists, I can't fit it in. Oh, speaking of writing lists, I've got to give a shout out to... I found a new army builder that someone's put together. I will say it feels like it's earlier on in the process of, being developed. There are definitely quality of life tweaks that don't exist. But if you go to ingood.com, that is an army builder that allows you to make at least the Chaos Dwarf ones. I'm assuming all of the Renegade rules, but yeah. Wait, I've just clicked it on a second monitor, and it said bad gateway. Maybe the website's down. Nope. It's here. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to credit them as well for the event video that I do this weekend. Chore for this building. But I'll put it in the description. You'd have to refresh the stream to see it, but I've updated it there. Yeah, like I say, it was lacking some quality of life updates that I'd like to have seen, but it had all of the correct points and things in the right place. So yeah, it was good. Torek Cackling Blade with the center unit with Totem Wrath is very strong. Well, I like it. The problem is it's the problem that all sort of monstrous cavalry or cavalry have, right? Which is, on paper it does a thing, but is the thing that it does what we need in the meta? I think it does what it does very well. It does a lot of output, but actually getting it where it needs to go is kind of difficult to do, and it's very vulnerable to being charged by, or you just put a dragon in front of it or something like that, which is a losing fight for the unit because you don't have a 1-wound champion, so they can stack loads of combat res into you, even in a challenge, yada yada. I think the Bull Centaurs still struggle to exist just in terms of what they want to do in this meta that we're in. But I think the way that they function, they're now they are a monstrous cavalry worth considering. Like, if we were to rate all the monstrous cavalry, they're one of the ones that you'd think about putting in the list. Also using the Toruk as a demonic familiar caddy. That is true. I do like that. You think that all the Renegade drafts are on Ingood? Hell yeah. I assumed that it was, but yeah. Yeah, Brian, just refresh the stream and it is in the description. I've edited it into the description. It just won't show up until you refresh. Mirido says, the army now allows a combined arms approach with decently fast units, chaff, war machines, shooting, and melee. The variety that can be brought without the feeling that you are shooting your own foot. And that is why I love this update. Yes, 100%. And I'll talk about that more in the video that I'm doing for Thursday. But I ran triple war machine and I ran some faster bits. And it felt great. I felt like I was playing an actual Warhammer army. I think, yeah, maybe this, like, maybe I even try less ridden monsters, because I still did run 2 monsters and an Iron Demon, so still 3 big things. I feel like you still want some level of just bully ability, so you can force the issue, but yeah, 3 pieces of artillery, you know, I had 2 bricks of infantry, which, you know, for dwarves, that's a good chunk of points. I had foot character in there as well. It felt like I was playing an actual Warhammer fantasy army, as opposed to an old world army, which is, as much as I like old world, I do wish that the meta was more the way that I remember the game before I understood how to play games well was. Because, you know, obviously you enjoy the game more before you start understanding how to squeeze the efficiency out of it. Cool. Hobgoblin Khan. This is exactly the same as it was. There is no change at all for Khan. It's exactly the same. It's cheap and cheerful. 45 points. It can go on a wolf. It can carry 50 points of magic items. You can take great weapons. You can take a short bow. It's got backstab on there, which is really nice. Rerolling your hits in the flank or rear of the unit means that it's much punchier than the equivalent cheap characters you'd expect to see doing this sort of role. It does have warband built in, so you can reroll your charges. Generally just pretty good. Obviously still has levies, which means that you're stuck at your leadership 7 unless you're going inside of a unit. But yeah, I like this thing. I think the Hobgoblin Khan is, in my mind, probably a competitive staple. And I think it's probably before the Despot, before the Castellan, but maybe after the other 2. And the reason for that is, I'm not running it on its own, and I probably don't care to run one on foot. But you can take 1 unit of the Hobgoblin Wolf Riders in core now. And having that character in there, I think, adds a lot of oomph to them. So I really like the Hobgoblin Khan. And having it unlinked to the Hobgoblin Wolf Riders is really nice. There is a small difference. The Khan is in attacks for Wolf Riders. That is true. That is, I have phrased that poorly. The unit is the same, but the Force org chart is different. So you now don't have to run them. They're not tied together. Although, I think you had to run a Khan for every unit of wolves previously, and now if I'm running the wolves, which I'm very tempted to do in like every list, I think, because they're a cheap, fast scoring unit, I probably want to run a Khan with them. So I'm glad that they're not linked together in that way, but I'm probably going to run them together anyway. So yeah, Hobgoblin Khan, great. I ran one with the Ruby Ring of Ruin, and I think it just put the nail in the coffin for me for the Ruby Ring of Ruin. It just feels terrible. I got so little value out of that thing over the course of the weekend, even on a unit that was consistently out of the spell range. Playing the flanks, it just didn't do what I wanted it to do. So I think I just need to give up on that dream. Like, on average, if you look at the stats, you're like, oh, this does, over the course of, the 30 turns it could theoretically be alive, it goes off like 16 of the times. So you're like, oh, I average out to 3.5 hits a turn or whatever it is. But that's not how Warhammer works. That's not how maths works. So yeah, probably going to have to drop the Ruby Ring from my list. I'm just not finding it to do very much, unfortunately. I know it's not optimal, but a Hobgoblin Khan on a wolf with a Hell Shard is my favourite unit in the old world. Hell Shard. Just remind myself of the Hell Shard. When they lose their last wound, the unit that makes the attack suffers D6 strength 5 hits at AP1. Yes, I agree, it's not the most optimal in the world. But, you know, sometimes we got to do things for fun. And that whole package costs, like, even on a wolf, it's like less than 100 points if you give them a great weapon and a shield and whatever. Did you get Great Weapon Khan and Backstab Uh, yeah, I think the Great Weapon plus Backstab unit would do well. I'd probably still pay for the short bows and just do some plinking as I walk up with a reserve move. But I think I was playing them mostly as a mobile shooting unit, and they were charging when they needed to charge. Whereas I think I'd like to reframe the mentality on them and make them a primarily melee unit that can shoot when it needs to shoot. That would be the way that I change them. And also like a scoring unit when they want to score. Throw it into a unit of Wild Riders, watch the Wood Elf player cry. First, I've got to take an item that I would never take, and then I have to play against a unit that I never see. I mean, in this contrived scenario, it's very effective. But yeah, elves in general don't like to see that sort of thing, for sure. The good old glass cannon that isn't a cannon. Finally, we've got the Black Orc characters, and I haven't played them since the doc came out, the draft version of the rules. I think they're exactly where they were before, in terms of they are good, but they're not impossible. You know, they're not necessarily the ones that you're going to take. I think, well, actually, no, that's not true. I think because the core is better, it maybe drops them down to like either bottom of competitive staple or top of solid. And you know what? Let's just be bold. Let's just be bold and say they're going into solid instead of competitive staple. Because now if you want to run the Black Orcs, you run your Overseer as a general. You still have to run the Black Orc character because they're tied together in terms of the a rule that they have, which is like for each Black Orc unit, you have to run one Black Orc character and vice versa. But I actually think I can very comfortably run not Black Orcs in core, whereas even with the Renegade 1.5 draft, that's all I wanted to put in core. That was like the most efficient unit. Now I think there's lots of things you can run there and feel very happy about. And I don't feel like I need a war boss on a Wyvern. The Wyvern just feels rubbish, honestly. You know, it's so sad. When you're playing with a Taurus is a Wyvern that's good. And then the Rider is sort of comparable. I'd say the Black Orc character's a little bit better, but, you know, they're kind of similar. You lose T7, you get a regen, yada yada. So, yeah. All right. We're going to put them in B purely because I think Black Orcs have probably moved down a tier. Potentially movement 7 Black Orcs. So that's true. That's true. I think if you want to do like an infantry-based stat strategy, you still go for like a Demonology caster, or you go for an Elementalism caster. Both of those feel like they're the sort of thing that you'd want to put in if you're going for that sort of playstyle. Probably, honestly, Elementalism. But if you're doing that, remember the base size. You end up with this weird situation where you've got a Sorcerer Prophet on the outside of a unit of Black Orcs if you're going Steed of Shadows. I think I'd rather just go for some sort of Dwarf unit if I'm doing that, especially now that the Castellan exists. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to core. Chaos Dwarf Warriors. My reaction when he put them in? Why? My reaction now? Still kind of like, I don't know if we needed to do it. I love this unit. This is in my mind, and you may not agree, and I think this is a playstyle difference as opposed to like a pure, hard and fast, objectively true statement. In my mind, this has replaced Hobgoblin Cutthroats. Because if you give them a shield, they are twice the points of the melee equipped Hobgoblin Cutthroats. You're not quite twice as durable, but you're not far off. You've got, T4 instead of T3, your weapon skill 4 instead of weapon skill 3. You've got a 3-up armor save instead of a 4-up armor save. Or, again, shooting, you've got a 4-up save instead of a 5-up save. So you're not quite, but almost twice as tanky. You are not vulnerable to first charge. Your leadership is good. You don't have levies. You don't have stubborn, which is a shame, but I think it's fair given, that he's basically just copied and pasted regular Dwarf Warriors. Have shield wall, which is a good rule. The movement is lower. You can pay for drilled. I wouldn't bother. You can pay for veteran. I absolutely would bother. So I was running a unit of 17 in marching column, just doing the classic trick of, I don't care if this unit charges, because they're strength 3 models, and I've arranged them in a 4x4 grid with one model behind. Puts them into marching column. I'm going to march them onto an objective. You can charge me. If you kill one model or more, I am out of marching column. I get my rank bonus. Suddenly I have the combat res of a cheap brick of dwarves, which is still like 4. If you don't kill any models, then I win combat because you've killed nothing, and I've got If you're a dragon, we're in a challenge or whatever. Infantry outnumber, close order, banner. I've got 3. I've got a musician as well. So yeah, it just feels good in general. So Chaos Dwarf Warriors, I think, are actually incredible. And I'm going to say, I don't think I can put them into every tournament list. I think that is too hot to take. But I think I would put them in competitive staple, somewhere behind these two. I just don't want to run hobgoblins anymore. And partially that's thematic, because I think it's really fun to run actual dwarves in your Chaos Dwarf list. The only non-dwarves I ran this weekend were the hobgoblins, and that was a concession because I've always wanted to run them, but I've never managed to fit them in because of all the points that I spent on other things, and now they're at the core, yada yada. But I was like, okay, let's just run dwarves and see how they perform. And I also wanted to run them in the Infernal Guard and see how they stacked up against each other. This unit's just good. I don't think it's every tournament list. Lacking stubborn is a little bit of a shame, but for how cheap they are, if you just give them shields, 8 points per model, frankly kind of illegal. Like, I really like this unit, and I think this you're going to see variance, right? Depending on what tournaments you play, depending on how important scoring is for your local meta. Where I play, there's a lot of strategic locations. There's a lot of just general secondary scoring. Having infantry, core infantry that can score, that's pretty cheap, that's pretty tanky, is 10 out of 10. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Chaos Dwarf Warriors. Well, hey, there's a Bone Grinder on the list. This is a great time. Amy publicly outed me in a way that cannot be forgiven. She put in the VIP chat that, yeah, she quoted me directly for something that I did say. And I realised that I'm putting myself on blast, but I feel like, for the comedy of it, I have to share. She told everyone that in our coaching session, I'd actually said something along the lines of, I think the Snotling Pump Wagon is good here. Which is a true statement, but without context, makes me sound insane. The context was, it was the cheapest model you could put in to get the list to the legal 3 drops that exclude swarms, war machines, characters, just to make sure that the list was legal. And it's like, 35 points, sure, that works. I can't believe that you'd share that publicly. That's so rude. Anyway, now I've shared it publicly, so you can all mock me for saying that Snotling Pump Wagons are viable in one very, very bizarre list that we were talking about. Now that there's a quick pause, if you've turned up in the last sort of little bit and you haven't already,
and
please...
that the Bone Grinder was playable, no cap.
I don't think I said that one. I am going to push back on that. What I was going to say is, if you're here and you haven't already, please give the stream a thumbs up. Helps us get picked up by the algorithm. I think I just accepted that you were going to play the Bone Grinder, and it was the less bad of the option given the thematic theming that you were going for. It was either you were going to run a Bone Grinder or you were going to run a Ragnarok, and I think the Bone Grinder was the lesser of two evils. Context barely helps, not gonna lie. Yeah, I know. Sometimes you just gotta... Yeah. Snotling Pump Wagons are great. That is not true, unfortunately. Unless you mean thematically or the models, in which case, fair. But if we're talking rules, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. Alright. Let's place the Bone Grinder. Where do we want to place the Bone Grinder? You know what? Well, actually, what I'm going to do... You all know that I have a hatred of the Bone Grinder. So, I'm going to put it to chat. I'm going to put a poll in, and I'm going to let you vote. And I will go with whatever the vote is, even if you do the funny thing and you put it in the top tier. So let me just put the poll in here. Solid. And then we've got at option weak. I do reserve the right to fix it at the end. Oh, wait. Oh, we can only go 4 options. Oh, that's so sad. Well, I guess we know that it's not a tournament staple because we're not seeing it in every list that can run it. So we can just skip that one. And I'll just put it in... I'll put the bottom 4 in. And then I will let you choose where to put it. That's the compromise that we're going for here. There we go. Skullcracker. Skullcracker? That's not a Bone Grinder. Bone Grinder tier. Yeah, I should just rename the tier to Bone Grinder tier. That does make sense. Oh, yeah, you're all so funny voting for competitive staple to start off with. No one's put it on unplayable. You lot are a joke. I can't believe. They say that a streamer's chat are reflective of the streamer, and I'm gonna have to confront some hard, hard truths about myself. I think is what I'm seeing here. Anyway, we'll leave that. We'll leave that until it gives me an answer that I want to see, and then I'll cut it off immediately. So we're going to talk about the Blunderbuss Decimators. Blunderbuss Decimators right now, I think, are not good. I think... So this is something that I've talked to Val about. I don't know what he's going to do with them. I've been lobbying for them to get the Tomb King rule that they can have for their Royal Host, which is just, you can always volley fire, even stand and shoot. I don't think that makes them good, but I think that would make them playable. So, like, right now, what they are is basically they're Thunderers, and I'm going to just talk through the issues that we have with the Blunderbuss. So the first thing is, it doesn't have quick shot, but it's a 12-inch range gun. So you're always shooting at -1 because you've moved. That's okay. That bit's fine, because you ignore long range, you ignore multiple shots, and you ignore the penalty for stand and shoot. So you're always hitting on 5s, basically, outside of other modifiers. That's okay. Not having the ability to stand and shoot with them at short range, like at any range, is a real detriment to them. And also the reason that I think giving them the ability to stand and shoot all of the time doesn't actually make them broken or good. So we've got this weapon that is short range, but is then not able to stand and shoot most of the time. So that's not great. That's not ideal. We're paying 10 points per model for a Thunderer stat line. So we're talking weapon skill 3, strength 3. You can give them great weapon and shields, which is good, and that takes them to 13 points a model. I don't think I want them to drop points. I think they are not 13 points per model good, but I also don't want to make them better by making them cheaper. I think that's wrong. I think what I'd like to see is having them at that points level, but just make them a little bit more gooderer. Yeah. So they also can't take any magic standards. And I know this is, again, a copy-paste from Thunderers, but if you look at other infantry units, even, like, Empire State missile troops, the dregs of shooting can take a magic standard. Wood Elf Glade Guard can take them as, 1 unit per 1,000 can take a magic standard. I think Blunderbusses need the ability, pardon me, to take a magic standard. I think that would be really good for them. I still don't think it makes them good. They also have open order instead of close order, which is good in some ways because it gives them ability to pivot with an open order and then get some shooting in. But you lose the static combat res. So in my head, the way that this unit wants to work is you want to take like 20 of them. You want to give them full command. You take a banner. Maybe the banner's like Monster Hunter Tapestry. You've got like a despot in there so you can increase their movement speed so they can walk around a little bit faster. You can't give them stubborn without a magic banner, which is like a BSB magic banner. Or we probably don't want to do that. You can't give them reserve move in any way. I don't think there's any way to give them reserve move. There's no high magic availability or any other source of reserve move. You can't give them poison. I'm pretty sure there's nothing there. So like if we look at all of the things that make the reserve move poison shooting brick that you can do with Royal Host really good, like none of that's there. I think this just takes them from like a really bad unit to like the bottom of solid, like at a push. But I'd love to see the unit, which is like a brick of 20 with like, 19 plus a character. That's got some static combat rares, it's got a banner in there, it's got some durability from whatever character you've got in there. Like a BSB, maybe, that's got the Lamasu's beard and maybe has... I'm struggling here to make them good. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you could give them quick shot as well, there's no banner that gives them quick shot. All of these things would make them great. Anyway, none of that is actually accurate, so I'm going to say that they're like bottom of week. You can play them at like kitchen table Warhammer pretty comfortably, I think, because what they do is they do a very weak shadow of what Chaos Dwarf Warriors do. They're 5 points more, and you don't get, like, you're losing the weapon skill 4, and you're gaining a gun that you probably won't shoot much. That's basically the trade-off there. You're also losing close order, yada yada. So, like, I think at their floor, they're a weak unit. They're not unplayable. But I think if they always stand and shoot, they could go up to maybe the bottom of solid. They're still probably not tournament viable. But I would try them, because I think Blunderbuss are just very thematically fun and flavorful. Wizarding Hat and Lore Familiar for reserve move. Yeah, that's true. And as we know, you have to put that on someone who's already a wizard so you can take the Lore Familiar, because you can't take arcane items on someone who wasn't a wizard before you put the Wizarding Hat on them. sequencing. Talon says, a big blunderbuss unit is iconic for Chaos Dwarves and should be at least viable. Yeah, 100%. All I'm pushing for is to make them, like, the least good of the core infantry units, but, like, I'm considering putting them on the table. That's where I want them to be, I think. But right now, I think they're just on, like, the bottom of weak. Andy says they need quick shot before I consider them. Yeah, like, arguably with quick shot and always stand and shoot, I think. Always volley fire. I think that might actually tip them into some armies just can't deal with this in a weird way, because the amount of shots they put out, it's all strength 3 AP1 shots, but like basically elves just go, oh, that is the thing that I can't deal with. Actually, no, I'm talking out my backside, because they just put 2 dragons in front of it and then they win. But yeah, I'd love to play this unit with like great weapons, a Castellan in there for like 1 turn of just juice them up. Probably not like maybe the BSB as well, but I'd love to have them just like take a magic banner instead for like Monster Hunter Tapestry or something like that. And then I've got maybe an Elementalism Sorcerer Prophet on a Taurus, perhaps with a Lore Familiar. Who knows? We could get crazy with it and like TMP them around the board and give them Earthen Ramparts as well. Maybe that's just a thing that would be fun. Are they flaming? I don't think they are. Let me just double check. I'll have to scroll up here. I did open this earlier in case I needed it. Blunderbuss. No, they're not flaming. So they don't even beat Troll Horde. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But yeah, so Blunderbuss, a little bit sad, unfortunately. Which, again, is a shame because thematically they're very cool. Hobgoblin Cutthroats. This is your goblin. They are way better than a goblin. 3 points per model for a goblin that just has backstab, so they reroll their hits if you're ever in the flank or rear of the unit. They've still got Horde, they've still got Warband, they've got Close Order, they do have levies, which means you're not using the General's Leadership or BSB rules. You can replace their shields for short bows for free, or you can give them, and you can give them light armor for a point, so 4 point per model for that light armor shield combo. Full command, no magic standards. I think they're falling off. I think before, in the 1.5 Legacy, or in, 1.5 Renegades, or in Legacy, I'd have put them up here in competitive staple. I think they've dropped down a peg. I think the existence of Chaos Dwarf Warriors has pushed them down. These are half the points, but honestly, if I'm running Hobgoblins, I probably want to run something to make them less terrible, whether that's the Overseer's Sigil, which is a banner that turns off levies in the command range, so 12 inches if you put it on a BSB, or maybe I put like a cheap Despot in there, or a Castellan, which is fine, but then just take the Dwarfs for, points. They're still good to hold home objectives for next to no points. They are, and like they're solid to that, but I didn't find, like, I went with the Chaos Dwarf Warriors as my cheap unit, so they were like 170-ish points. Then I had a unit of Hobgoblin Wolf Riders in core, and then I had one like bigger brick. And I kind of don't feel like I want more than 3 core units. That feels like the sweet spot for me. Main unit, side unit, fast unit. Ticked all the boxes I wanted. I think you can run them still, cheaply, and they're fine. And they're not bad. And some armies just hate seeing, very cheap, short bow shots. Elves don't love it. If you're playing against elves and you're like, I've got a unit of just volleyfying short bows here. Do you want to run your Illyrian Reavers at me? Probably not. But yeah, they've dropped down from competitive staple to solid for me, in my eyes. I think, but this is where maybe playstyle differences come in, and I think some people are going to get a lot more out of them than I would in the way that I play. I value this Chaos Dwarf unit more. Some people are going to get a value of the Hobgoblins more, but I still stand my opinion that they are down in the solid tier. You can play them, but I'm not expecting to see them in every list, especially because people want to play the Dwarves. Okay. Then we've got the Infernal Guard. The confused Infernal Guard. They are, in the draft doc, they are fully yellow. Why? Because they haven't changed apart from their points. Sure. What do? They are weapon skill 4, they're strength 4, they don't have an AP 1 hand weapon, they're only a single attack, they have stubborn, they've got shield wall, all of these rules are cool. You can take standards on them, you can take veteran, all of that good stuff. But, like, they're kind of confused. They're a mid-tier unit when it doesn't need to be. Like, if you look at Chaos Dwarf Infantry, you've got the Hobgoblins, then you've got the Dwarf Warriors, then you've got the Infernal Guard, then you've got the Infernal Iron Sworn. Oh, also you've got Black Orcs in there. So it's like, they're truly like the middle of 5 different infantry units, and I don't know why they exist. I liked using them this weekend. Strength 4 Great Weapons with Stubborn. Well, Strength 6 Great Weapons with Stubborn. Kind of felt pretty good. I know you're paying 3 points more, but I did like them. I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to rate them, I think. The Weapon Skill 4 and the Strength 4 is really nice. The Stubborn's really nice. This is the sort of unit that if you don't want to fully invest into Infernal Guard, Infernal Ironsworn, but you want to run a Castellan, I think this is like the midway. I kind of feel like maybe run this instead of running Black Orcs. Unless you specifically want to run like a Black Orc character. I think this just fits neatly into core. I was finding that actually writing lists with Black Orc characters and units was going counter to what I was trying to do with my lists, since I was trying to try more stuff like the artillery. Because you've got more of attacks to fit that in. I found the Infernal Guard to be very playable. Very, very playable. What size unit did you favour? That's a great question. I would have to have a look at what I ran.
Rat emoji.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Rat emoji indeed. I'm just going to pull up the list because it's only Tuesday, but there has been a lot. A lot has happened between now and the event of the weekend. I didn't sleep much on the Sunday evening, and then I had to come home and work on Monday, which, you know, play the world's tiniest violin for me for having to do my job. But I had like a 2-hour session between at sort of lunchtime, and I was flagging. I had to order a coffee to get me through it. Finish the coffee, finish the session, and immediately was just like, I gotta have a nap, because I was working at 7 as well. So yeah, it's felt like a long time since this weekend. So I ran a unit of 21. 21 is not necessarily the amount you'd need to go for. I just wanted to go like, this is where I put my points. I think if I'm running them, I really like running the unit 5 wide if you need the combat res. Or 6 wide if you want to get the extra output of them. So I guess like you could drop to 17 would be the lowest I'd go, but I'd quite like 19 plus a character would be like the sweet spot. I'm not going to say they're a competitive staple. I think they're a confused unit that doesn't really know what they want to do, and I feel like Val's probably going to tweak them at some point in some sort of interesting way. I'm going to put them here. I like them more than the Hobgoblin Cutthroat, but it's also like I've played one event with them. I've played one event with them with a Castellan and had some good results with it, and that felt nice. Oh, thank you, Mr. Assyrian. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. I honestly I don't think I've ever seen super stickers before. Did that come up with chat as well, or did it just... Hold on, if I... No, I don't think it did. Oh, no, it just came up on the Streamlabs data. Pair character exaggeratedly stretching his arm forward to offer a cup of coffee. It's true. You're spitting facts, Mr. Assyrian. You're spitting facts. The other problem is Fireglaves sucking. Yeah, Fireglaves do suck. I'd love to see them improved. I said this in the initial video I did. There's no reason for them to not be basically the proper halberds. And also at 3 points per model, I don't love what they do. Halberds being 2 points per model, and then you also get a gun for it, is like, it's hard to argue that it should be cheaper, but I just don't think they do enough to justify me wanting to take them. Infernal Guard could really use Ballistic Skill 4. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, which unit can have Cackling Blade? That, right, okay, that was the thing that was off. Which unit can have Cackling Blade? What? I'm not sure why I'd put Cackling Blade on in this sort of list. Maybe if you wanted to run a Cackling Blade character, like, I don't think I'd want to run Cackling Blade on a mount. I think if I'm running a mounted character, like a monstrous character, I'm probably leaning more on the toughness. Although I guess you could go like Talisman of Protection, Shield, Cackling Blade, and have a T6 Overlord with the Cackling Blade with a 3-up save and a 5-up ward. That's maybe worth experimenting with, actually. But if you wanted to run it, it would probably be like a Castellan, in my mind, because they have 75 points of magic armor allowance. Magic item allowance. So I'd go Cackling Blade, Charmed Shield, and that would get me to a 3-up armor save, a single 5-up ward. They've got the ability to once per game give the entire unit rerolls to hits and +1 attack. And then you go like Steed of Shadows as well with that. I think that if I wanted to do it, that would be the way to do it. Cackling Blade. If they could volley fire Fireglaves would be interesting. Yeah, maybe. I think, who said it in chat? Have fun trading. If they were Ballistic Skill 4, I think I'd be more open to it, because they don't ignore any penalties, right? Hell, the Blunderbuss. I think they're just... It's just a Strength 4, AP 1, Armor Bane 1 shot, which is, like, in theory, solid. But then you look at all of the modifiers that they take, you're like, 18-inch range, so you're often going to be shooting at long range. I don't know. Maybe Ballistic Skill 4 and Quick Shot, which is, like, asking a lot. But if I had those two rules, I could see them running around in, like, 6 wide. Maybe doing something. I don't know. The problem is, I think the Blunderbuss is very easy to theorize around and be like, oh, we can make this exciting in this way. I think it's a lot harder to make the hail shot, the Fireglaive, exciting in a way that's worth taking. You can just add rules to it and add stats to it to make it better, but I think it's hard to make it more exciting in a way that I care about it. Volley Fire, Cackling Blade, Blunderbuss's Swan. I hope you're doing okay there. That sounds like someone might be like, if you can smell toast, let us know. You think Infernal Guard exists because the Fireglaves and detachment rule, they need a small buff to their shooting though. Yeah. Like I get why they exist, because he was kind of like, I wasn't sure what to do with them. But in terms of like what their role is, I'm not sure where they exist. But I just kind of like all of the rules that they bring, honestly. Don't you think that Ballistic Skill 4 has been compensated for by the multiple shots, etc.? I think they are best used as a detachment. Infernal Guard can't take the Blunderbuss. That's like a specifically different unit now. So I'd say arguably yes on the Blunderbuss unit. The what are they called? Blunderbuss Decimators. That's it. If you could smell toast, you'd eat it. That's fair. I love me some toast. I've had a lot of sourdough toast recently, which I'm a big fan of. Big fan. Yeah. Okay. So, Infernal Guard, I've put them in solid. I think they're fine. I think you can take them. I think if you don't take them, you're also fine. That's basically where I'm at. And then we get into 3 halfway characters. Oh, no worries. Yeah, that makes sense. I think Ballistic Skill 3 on the Blunderbuss feels fine. I think they just need Quick Shot. Or just like, maybe just a rule that says they can always stand and shoot. That would maybe be the way to do things, where you don't need to give them the ability to ignore the modifier for moving and shooting, because they already ignore so many modifiers. But if you were to give them the ability to stand and shoot, even if they were at close range, that would maybe be good. Oh! Thank you, Colin. Really appreciate that as well. Again, if you're here and you've received a gifted membership, then please do thank Colin in the chat, and also make sure you post in the channel, in the needs roll channel, and I will apply that roll after the stream. Agree with the Quick Shot. Point of blast, no aiming required. Give them templates. Give them templates that can stand and shoot. Don't ask how that works. Cool. So let's talk about the 3 units that we've got down here, which are the units that you can take if you've got certain requirements. So Hobgoblins is just you can take 1 unit in core, otherwise they're in rare. Black Orcs you can take if you've got an Overlord as a general, but also a Black Orc character. And then the Infernal Iron Sworn. You have to have the Castellan as the general. He's going to fix that. I don't know how he's going to fix it. Thank you very much, Amy. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. 5 more to entice Bone Grinder. Good votes. Oh no. Thank you everyone for your support. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do what Amy's saying. I'm just going to look at the camera quietly and implore you to do what you think is right. Just imagine Sarah McMillan playing in the background in the arms of an angel. I can't play it because I'll get demonetized. But every Friday, every Friday and one Monday a month, I have to see lists with bone grinders in them. For just one vote in the bottom category, you can make me maybe not have to see that every time. Call the number on screen now, or just vote in chat. Sam says, I already voted for Bone Grinder, but I didn't get a membership. How do we fix this? Brian says, apparently I had gift memberships off. Why, YouTube? Why? Ah! Yeah. Yes. I think it defaults off. Make sure you've checked your YouTube settings so that you can accept gifted memberships, because there are a number of very generous people who do pop in and consistently gift, which I really appreciate. It's very kind of you all to do so. Ed plugged the members only tourney for people to play for new members for the Warhol tourney. Yes, there is the Open Order Summer Slam, which I'm not running. It's being run by channel members. If you're a channel member, make sure you post in Need Roll to get the permissions to be able to see all of the information there. It's a drop-in, drop-out tournament. It's on Warhol. It is 2 games a month. They are paired. Basically, you can join before the first of the month, and then you'll be given 2 games. It's a vibes tournament. You can play hard stuff, or you can just play some fun stuff. Whatever you want to go with is, however you want to take that, you'll just be paired appropriately. And yeah, it's low commitment. If you play your 2 games and go, man, I haven't got time to do this in July as well, you can just drop out. That'll be nice and easy. Lovely stuff. Brian says, submitting a list for Mega Skeleton for Fix My List long ago, and someone a few months ago on Reddit asked me for one. I said, boy, have I got you one covered. Hey, there we go. I do like the idea of as many skeletons as possible. I just made a bone grinder list this afternoon. Remy, no, Remy. I don't know if you've seen the message I sent you. We'll schedule a chat in, but you will not be playing a bone grinder. Remy is one of my team for, obviously I'm coaching the Netherlands this year for WTC, which I'm super excited about. It's a real pleasure to do the international stuff. But we're gonna have a chat about lists, not because he's a problem, but just things have changed. You will not be running a bone grinder. I'm just going to tell you now in front of all these witnesses. I want to make sure you're aware. All right, cool. Let's get back to it. Thank you again. I'm going to start with the Black Orc mobs. Previously, this would have been competitive staple. I would have put them here. I maybe would have put them in every tournament list. I think actually Black Orcs would have been here. Testament to how the core is looking now. I think this has dropped down to either the top of Solid or the bottom of competitive lists. Because of where I've put the Black Orc characters, I'm going to put it in Solid. This might be wrong. They're still very, very good. You can give them Veteran, you can give them Stubborn. They've got always a 3-up armor save between, using the Motley Crew rule, where half of them use hand weapon shields, half of them use great weapons. So you're always going to get some extra oomph there. They're 4-inch move, so they're a little bit faster than the rest of your core. They've got, what else have they got? They can take Orcs and Goblin banners, which are really good. So if you want, you can go Big Red Raggedy Flag or various other things. You can actually go quite quickly. A combination that I hadn't thought about until literally right now is you go Black Orcs, you take the War Banner that gives them plus D3 inches of charge range, and you combo that with the Overseer to give them plus D3 inches of movement. And suddenly, it's very dice dependent, but your maximum declare range might go up to 16 inches. You wouldn't make a 16-inch charge realistically, but like you get to rivaling cavalry in terms of like how far you could threaten. Remy says, if I play for Scotland as a merc, can I play a bone grinder? Oh no, we can't. I'm going to have to ask you to stop talking to other international teams, Remy, just for the list security. Yeah, so I think Black Orcs probably, arguably still in competitive staple, but they're towing the line. This might be something that I would come back to and change my opinion on. I think this unit, right now, I've played it in every Chaos Dwarf list I've played, up until the one point, like the Google Doc. With the Google Doc, I don't want to play this because I can play actual dwarves. So that has changed my opinion. And also, the Ironsworn have gotten better. So that also has changed my opinion. But I think they're probably somewhere on this borderline. I'm going to leave them in solid. Because why not just make bold decisions? Even though they are probably verging into competitive staple. Black Orcs are in every tournament list, as you always want the War Boss and Wyvern. I personally prefer the T7 characters, the Overseers and the Sorcerer Prophets. The Black Orc on Wyvern is good, but I don't think it's as good as those in terms of things that I value right now. T7, so I'm immune to Vile Tide. The Blazing Body Rule is really good. The mounts attacks on the Taurus are actually pretty good compared to Wyverns. With Furious Charge, if you go into a challenge, you can just make 5 attacks that are strength 6 AP 1. That's not awful. The Wyvern's stuck at that 1 strikes first attack. There's a lot of benefits to running the Taurus, I think. And also Stubborn. Stubborn on the Overseer is so nice. It's Sorcerer Prophet as well. So yeah, I would prefer the actual Chaos Dwarf characters over the Black Orc. Wyvern is better than Great Taurus. Bell Taurus is better value than Wyvern for not a lot more points. Yeah, exactly. So it's better than the halfway character, the halfway mount. You can get Glow-Green Amulet for your Big Dwarf Infantry too, which is fun. That is true, and I like the immunity that you can bring that way. The problem is, it's still that base size issue, and I think if you're playing with infantry that is slow, having an extra character tacked on the side, whether it's a Black Orc tacked onto the Dwarves or a Dwarf tacked onto the Black Orcs, really kind of messes with how well the unit functions. Black Orcs are where they should be, totally viable, as opposed to being necessary. Yeah, I think so. Then we'll go for the Infernal Ironsworn. I think Infernal Ironsworn are, like previously, they were here. They were 19 points per model, and then 2 points for a Great Weapon, 1 point for a Shield. Now they are 16 points per model before you buy upgrades, so they're 19 points if you go for the Great Weapon and Shield. I think they're pretty solid. They're like Chosen, but dwarves, and you can take them in core. Because you can take them in core, I think they're viable. I would say I'd put them probably not in competitive staple, but I think they sit in the solid tier. I want to play with them. The only problem is they are a slow infantry unit. Yes, they're core, so they stand on the point, but they're a slow infantry unit that your opponent can just run around, and they're very points dense per wound. You can take a much bigger unit now that they're 19 points per model. Like, you can very comfortably run 20 plus full command plus a banner, and like maybe some matter resist on there as well. They really like the buffs that the Overseer and the Castellan bring. They value, the mobility that a Sorcerer Prophet can give them as well. I like them. I just don't know that they're quite there in terms of being competitive staple. But I think this is probably the order that I would like the infantry in. Assuming that you can take them in core. I'm assuming that the Castellan issue is fixed, so that you can take them in core, but then you can also take the Overseer and the Sorcerer Prophet as well. I do not like needing a Castellan for core. Yeah, so that's going to be fixed, Brian. I don't know how it's going to be fixed, but it's going to work in some way. I was looking at Ironsworn and Steedcaster. Yeah, absolutely. Just having the Strength 4 AP 1 hand weapons, I think is really solid. So even if you just sit in front of someone and you're like, I'm going to Steed a Shadow's Demonic Vessel, you're going to charge me. I'm going to make effectively 3 attacks at Strength 4 AP 1 because you're fighting in 2 ranks per model on the front rank. I think you get a lot out of that. That feels pretty solid. With the need for an Overseer and a Black Orc character, it could be time to revisit the character and infantry box list, especially with extra movement from the Overseer. Yeah, I think there's a lot of playing around to do for Chaos Dwarves. I need to play some other stuff. I just want to play Chaos Dwarves because they're so fun. But I need to change it up and play some other things, just for so I don't stagnate. But yeah, I don't know. They're really, really fun to play, and like all of the changes I'm loving. Hobgoblins, the one unit that you can take in core. Every tournament list. This is, in my mind, the only thing that is like you should put this in every list. Why would you not put them in the list? You want to run pure dwarves. Thematically, you're like, I want to only run dwarves. Cool. I think there is no reason to not run them. They are so good. They're movement 9 fast cav that can skirmish. Their baseline, is it? I want to say 11 points per model or something like that. They are very, very cheap. I'm just going to scroll down and find them. Actually, there's two. Unfortunately, there's 2 units in every tournament list, and neither one of them's dwarves. We'll get to that in a second, though. Yeah, 12 points per model for a wolf rider with light armor shields, with a cav spear as well. That's just good. They've got skirmish. They've got evasive. Evasive is great. Fire and flee, just baseline. They've got everything. Swift stride. They have levies. That is their one downside. They are so good, though. One of these, probably a Khan. Got to go into everyone on my list that I'm trying to write the most competitive list possible. Every tournament list, Fear of the Block Pirate. Yeah, the time of Black Orcs is over. The time of Hobgoblin Wolf Riders in core has begun. They're so good. I do need to tool around with how I want to run them, but I think even if I just run like 6 of them, no character, yeah, I'm happy with that. I actually think that there's a model you've missed, Ed, that I've been looking to build around Demon Smith Sorcerer. Demon Smith Sorcerer is in there. It is currently at the bottom of solid tier, just here, the one I'm shaking. I think it's solid. I like it. It's just, if you're not running artillery, there's no value there, I think, realistically. The magic missile cheap and the engineer. Yeah, so the problem is the magic missile is not consistent. Like, obviously you can go for the character sniping magic missile, who, I'm going to scroll up and just tell you the name of it instead of just talking about it in the abstract. The Curse of Hashut. Cast a 9, so you need to roll an 8. 18-inch range magic missile, only targets characters. Here's the problem with it. Yes, it ignores Lookout Sir. Yes, it ignores lone character targeting. Sorry, it doesn't ignore Lookout Sir. Yes, you can shoot into units, and it ignores Lookout Sir. I've done it again. It ignores lone character targeting. It doesn't ignore Lookout Sir. So if you're trying to snipe something, you can just look. It can be Lookout Sir'd. You can take the dark magic missile. Yes, but it's bad. Like, it's not so bad that I wouldn't run it. That probably is the lore that I'd go with, but it's just not a magic missile that I care much about. Yeah, I think it's solid, but if you're not running artillery, then it's not got any value. So I think it's in solid. Yeah, okay. Definitely not Sword of Sorrows. Well, okay, not definitely. I wouldn't take Sword of Sorrows personally. The reason I say that is it's ballistic skill 4. You're paying a lot of points then to bring something that's already kind of pricey. I think I wouldn't double down on it in that way. Right, okay, moving on. We've done all of the core there, and I think I'm very happy with all of the core. We're going to immediately just go straight to the second unit that I think should be in every tournament list. And I didn't run them myself. I know they're very good. I've run them at multiple tournaments. The reason I didn't run them is I wanted to run as many dwarves as possible, so I deliberately didn't put them in. Sneaky gits. They are arguably better than Hobgoblin Wolf Riders. The only reason I wouldn't run them is if your tournament pack has no, secondary scoring. If there's no baggage trains, there's no domination, and there's, not really much in the way of strategic locations, sure. At that point, you don't run them. Obviously, they can't take the strategic locations, but they can definitely come in the back line and threaten to kill, I don't know, a small unit of skeleton warriors or something like that. If you get into the back of them, you throw some throwing weapons, you get some rerolls to hit, all of that good stuff. Sneaky gits are for 6 points per model. They are obscene. They have a goblin stat line. Wait, no, they don't. They've got ballistic skill 4. They've got weapon skill 4. They reroll hits in combat in the flank and rear. They've got 2 hand weapons. They've got throwing weapons. They're initiative 4. They're leadership's pants. That's the big downside of them. But yeah, they are. Wow. They have ambush built in. You don't pay for it. It's just there. This is probably the best ambushing unit in the game. Just in terms of a cheap backfield harasser. I can't think of anything that I like more. There are units that you I can have a 200-point ambushing unit. Ambushing Minotaurs and Bloodherd. That's kind of scary. But this is point for point, in my mind, the best ambushing unit you can get. Wish we had them in Orcs and Goblins? Yeah, absolutely. And Warband, so reroll charges. 100%. 100%. Each time I look at the flying balls, I just see crap dragons. You're looking at them wrong. They're dragons with stubborn. And honestly, that I would murder in Warhammer for stubborn on dragons. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. So in every list, how many units? One. I think one. I think both Sneaky Gits and Hobgoblin and Wolf Riders, the first unit's very, very good, and then the second unit is much less good. A second unit of Sneaky Gits is fine. It's like a second ambushing unit, but you don't need two of them, you need one. The value of an ambushing unit is not necessarily doing, like, getting the 250 points from the baggage train. It's also making your opponent dedicate 150 points all game just to screen out your backline, or maybe more. You know, it's hard to screen out a backline, and then you can just bring them in and do something else. The threat of Sneaky Hits is that they're good on the table, the threat of them is even better. Often, I really like it when they don't come in until sort of like turn 4, or if you go second turn 3. Like, if you fail a couple of, like, coming in on a 4+, you're like, oh man, they haven't come in, your opponent's just sat there sweating, you're like, oh, I can't move the screening unit. Great stuff. Really great stuff. Yeah, so that's where I stand on Sneaky Gits. We're now coming up to 2 units that I don't have firm opinions on, because I haven't playtested them. So I'm going to give you my thoughts, and I'm going to put them somewhere, but I'm open to discussion on these ones. We're starting off with Kadai Fireborn, and the Kadai Fireborn are up to 3 wounds, as they have been in Renegades for a while. They're down to 36 points, and they've got Born of Fire, which is the ward save, right, against flaming attacks. What else did they have? I'm sure there was something else on there that made them better. They've got ensorcel hand weapons. I think maybe it was just that they're cheaper, right? That was it. I mean, they're just like mediocre monstrous infantry, and in addition, where monstrous infantry is not generally good. So I think this is just like down in weak, right? I don't see any particular point of strength for them. Is there anything I'm missing? Blazing Body's better, actually. Getting the strength 4 hit and having multiple of them together is quite nice. Theoretically, each one's going to be hitting 2 to 3 models. That's cool. But then you're kind of squishy. Like, yeah, you've got a regen, but I don't know. I don't see them. I might be wrong with this one, but I feel like they're a weak unit. Amy is shilling in chat for the Bone Grinder, trying to get people to vote in her favor to get it up into the top tier. Kind of want them in the flank. Does he get a niche situation to make them higher than weak? Yeah. They got weaker with the regen with not working on Unsable. That's true. That is true. Yeah, I think they probably sit here. If anyone has come up with a master plan to use them, that's great. I'd be keen to see it. They need heavy armor or higher toughness. Yeah. And also strength 5 AP 1 is like fine, but it's not exciting. Ambushes to represent them being summoned. If we're stealing rules from Tomb Kings, maybe Sorcerer Prophets can bring them up from the beneath the sands. Maybe that's a thing that they could do. Amy says Bone Grinder is better in this faction than others. Give it a ward save and -1 to be hit. We're reaching now. We're reaching a little bit, I think I would say. All right, we'll move on from there. Bull Center Renders. They got better. I still don't think I want to run them, but I think if you want to run them, they're a lot more exciting. They got cheaper. They got a 3rd attack, whereas before they were only 2 attacks, which is really rough because it's like, oh, but they've got the impact hits, sure, but you need that. Their armor save improved as well. So baseline, they were a 5-up save. They're now a 4-up save because of Black Shard armor, and if you pay for the shield, you become a 3-up save. And I think that gets them to a decent spot, where you take the great weapons and the shields, puts them at 60 points per model, which is expensive, and your T5 with 3 wounds. Let's not compare that to a Dragon Ogre. You've got other advantages over those, over Dragon Ogres. Stubborn Swift Stride, those are things that are really nice to have. I do love them. The impact hits are good. They've got good AP on the impact hits as well. All of that stuff. I don't know that I want to spend 60 points for them. The fact that they're loner as well, and the only character you can get in there, not that there is any, like, monstrous cavalry mount that you could have put a character on, but, like, if you could do some sort of weird Death Star with, like, the way that you can do a Dragon Ogre Death Star, I'd be more keen to try them. I think they're fine. I don't think they're bad. I think the way they're statted now is decent. I just don't think what they do is something that I want to put on the table competitively. So I think I would put them at the bottom end of solid. If you want cavalry, you get cavalry. Yep. Bull Centaurs on the charge can actually go toe-to-toe-ish with 4 Dragon Ogres, depending on the first combat casualties. Sure. The problem is that those aren't the sort of fights that I'm expecting to see them in. Like, Dragon Ogres they don't love being in combat with dragons, but because they're strength 7 great weapons, they sometimes just kind of take the pound of flesh, and because they're 4 wounds as well with a 3-up armor save, they also sometimes just don't keel over and die. You're gonna lose realistically with the Dragon Ogres, but it's a lot less of a fun fight for the person with the dragon. Whereas if we're talking the Bull Centaur renders, you're only 3 wounds. Your T5 doesn't really matter because dragons are strength 7. Your strength 4, you've only got a 4-up armor save in combat if you want to use the great weapon to get the strength 6. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I want to run them. And I also I like Dragon Ogres as the last sort of 200 points in the list. This unit is, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that I want to run them as 200 points. You can take a magic standard, though. That is cool. I do like that. Yeah, I think they're fine. But for me, they're like top are weak, bottom are solid, realistically. Yeah. Magma cannons. This cannon's a flamethrower. It goes in unplayable. Sorry. Unfortunately, they're not good. Apparently, they used to be one of the best things in the game. I was talking to an old Chaos Dwarf player, as in he played Chaos Dwarfs a while ago, not that he's necessarily old. But, yeah, he said that, you know, when he was playing Chaos Dwarves back in, maybe it was 6th, I can't remember which edition he was saying, they used to be one of the best things you could run. But, I mean, have you ever seen anyone running a flame cannon in any tournament list? I haven't. And yeah, even though you can drag them behind an Iron Demon, I'm still not sold that they are even remotely playable, unfortunately. So we can just put that there. Let's go to the rest of the artillery then, I think. Hobgoblin Bolt Thrower. This is just a bolt thrower. I don't like bolt throwers. I think ballistic skill shooting is generally weak. There are exceptions. I don't think this is one of the exceptions. It is 45 points, but it doesn't count as a drop. If it counted as a drop, where you could just put it down and be like, here's a 45-point drop, let's see what you're doing, but because all war machines are together, you don't get to do that. I don't really see the value. It's also leadership 6 with levies, so there's no way to stop it from running away outside of keeping your BSB with, or like a banner with the Overseer's Sigil in range of it, which I do not want to do. I think this is a weak unit. I think you can take 3 of them and on average get 1 hit, or you could take 2 of them, put 1 on each flank, and be like a poor man's cannon in terms of threatening cavalry. I'm not really worried about cavalry pushing up the board all that much. If only Games Workshop gave +1 to hit large targets, bolt throwers would be foundational. You'd be hitting realistically on 4s and then 3s. I'm not opposed to that. Yeah, I think that changes the maths on them in an interesting way. I still wouldn't run the elf one, given how cheap it is. Expensive it is, sorry. No talent. I do not trust you, bro. Curse of our attraction, trust me, bro. No. There was 7th, 8th Forge World only. Don't think it was a Magma Cannon in 4th. It must have been 7th or 8th then when he was playing it. But yeah, Hobgoblin Wolf Bolt Thrower. I'm going to put it in 4 in week. If you want to win a tournament with them in your list, I'd be very pleased to be proved wrong. So there's your challenge. If you think they're good, go out and prove me wrong. The Death Shrieker rocket launcher. This thing is expensive, I think, for what it does. It's a stone thrower. It's a stone thrower, and if you're looking at a grudge thrower is 95 points. The advantage you get is that you can also do a strength 3 AP1 large blast template. That's good, and it also causes panic. So it's somewhere between a stone thrower and a what's it called? The skull thrower that Tomb Kings have. It's been so long since I've seen one that I've forgotten the name of it. I'm gonna have to just check the points of the Tomb Kings one because it's been a hot minute since I've seen anyone running a Screaming Skull Catapult. 105 points for a Screaming Skull Catapult. And then Skulls of the Foe is 20 points, which is the -1 to leadership. So it always does the panic. It's a small blast. Like, I think this needs to go down in points. I don't think it needs to go down to 95 points, although we don't really see Dwarf players playing Grudge Throwers, even though you can add artillery runes onto them to make them magic. Obviously, you can do that with Hellbound here, but it's very pricey. I think this could go down to 105 points very comfortably. Too expensive. Not fair to compare versus Doom Diver, but you're already paying extra points to use those rerolls one way or another. 110 points, sure, not 130. How much is a Doom Diver? Doom Diver is 95, right? Yeah. I think you can't compare, like, you can't just straight compare apples to apples because there's difference in terms of what the army wants to do. But yeah, I think it needs to be significantly cheaper. That would be my pitch for the Death Streaker. Because right now I don't really ever want to run it. I did run 2 and I was not impressed. But that was more due to model limitations. Yeah. Hellbound, giving them a reroll. Hellbound being tweaked so that it doesn't give you worse misfires now is really nice. The magical attacks is nice to have. The ward save on them is pretty negligible. Either you don't take damage or you die. Like, for War Machines, if we're being realistic. Yeah. Yeah, and then paying point, like, you could probably just bake the steam carriage in as well, because I'm never gonna, I don't want to deploy my artillery and then move towards the enemy, because I probably want my artillery to be at the back, not moving. Hellbound's still probably overpriced too. Yeah, probably. Although it gives a lot, right? So it has an inbuilt reroll, which, if you compare it to the Cathay Ogre Loader, obviously that can shoot twice as well. And then you also get the ward save, and you upgrade to Fear, so you don't have to take terror tests. Honestly, getting Fear from Hellbound is probably the biggest upgrade in terms of, like, safety of artillery. You'll still die to a dragon, but there's no risk that you'll just get terrored off and then both of them die. Okay, your leadership 9, that's an exaggeration. I was thinking about general, how I feel about artillery in general. But, like, there's a lot of upgrades in there. 30 points is steep, but I'd consider it if you were cheaper. If it was like 100 points and then 30 points for Hellbound, I'd think about it, I think. But yeah, it probably is overpriced as well. So, Death Shrieker, I think, is fine. I think it's better than Bull Centaurs. I think it is probably neck and neck with the Demon Smith, right? Because you've got to run it with the Demon Smith. And I wish I'd run a Demon Smith Sorcerer this weekend, because I felt the lack of rerolls when I was misfiring a lot. Cool. Then I'm going to talk about the other 2 pieces of artillery, and I'm going to come back to the Iron... Oh, I put the wrong thing in. Oops. I'm going to put the Iron Demon in later. Hey, thank you, yeah. Yeah, so in terms of the accuracy of them, they're like half as good as cannons, I think, is my rough gut feel napkin maths on them. So if a cannon is 130 points for, like, a Cathay Grand Cannon, surely I'd only want to pay 65 points for one. Obviously you can't 1-to-1 it there, but, like, I'm not happy to pay the same for a Cathay Cannon as I am for a Death Streaker rocket launcher as I am for a Cathay Cannon. Iron Demon. No, I've said I'm coming back to that. We're doing the artillery. I need to go like this so I don't keep moving that one. Dreadquake Mortar. I think the Dreadquake Mortar, pretty legit. I think if I'm running Dwarves again, I'd like to run double Dreadquake Mortar. Now, it is very pricey, but the turning off Swift Stride, the D3+2, the ability to have the Ogre Loader to get a reroll or to double up is really nice. Like, if you're running 2 pieces of artillery, double Dreadquakes, there's an argument you could make to maybe just go Hellbound Ogre Loader and not run the Sorcerer Prophet, the Demon Smith Sorcerer. That's probably not right, but a large blast template that's strength 4 AP 1 with the multiple, like, the slow down effect and the hole in the center kind of feels good, I think. The model's huge. The model is ludicrously big. But yeah, I don't know. I like it. I really like it. I think it feels... I think it's probably still in a similar sort of tier. I don't know if it becomes a competitive staple. But, like, for me, it's in, like, here, this sort of realm. I could see an argument that it comes up to competitive staple, or it drops down to solid. Like, you could definitely go 2 ways with it. Dreadquake, my beloved. I really liked it. Yeah. Dreadquake is very T1 dependent. Yeah, I think it's like it's expensive artillery, so all of the issues that artillery have, it really doubles down on those. Do you imagine having a 5-inch template at strength 4 AP1 and not it being Silk and Itch Nuisance and Evil Sun to get to the same effective stat line? Arachnaroks are bad, Amy. I'm sorry to break this to you. On an 8x5 brick of gore, you kill 10ish on average, but the spread is high. Yeah, 100%. That's what I like about them. Because it's got the high damage central hull, and it has the Quake ability, and on top of that, it's got the strength 4 AP1 large blast. There's no armies that it's bad into. I'll put that on dragons. I'll put that on Pegasus Knights. I'll put that on cavalry. I'll put that on infantry. There's nothing that I'm unhappy to put that on top of. And even if you miss, you'll probably still get some value, or you may get some value with the central hull spreading the Quake. So it is very pricey for what it does. Charging a 5-wound artillery with T4 stubborn and 4 bombs to throw on the stand and shoot is nasty. I don't think that's how it works, unfortunately. So the naphtha bombs that you can buy for the Indentured Ogre, that also the crew of the War Machine get, the Chaos Dwarf crew, that I believe they count as one model, even though they have 3 attacks. So I think you only get to throw 1 bomb from them. I believe that's how that works. This is something that I haven't gone down and double checked all the rulings on, but I think that would be how that actually correctly interacts. Mr. Assyrian, I think you'll have a good time playing them. I had a good time playing the one that I played. I just wish I had 2 of those instead of 1 of them and 2 Death Shriekers. I'd have been happier with 2 Dreadquakes, that's for sure. Oh, and also they've got Black Shot armor plus heavy armor, which means you've got a 4-up save on your artillery, which is just funny, honestly. If anyone's trying to snipe you with a fireball, good luck. 4-up save into a 5-up ward is dumb. But yeah, so I think that's solid. And then the final, there's a lot of traditional artillery killers can't hit Dreadquake. I agree. I think they're a lot beefier. If you put the Ogre on there, you've got the extra punch. I think they feel solid. With that 4-up armor save, they're kind of hard to chew through with 5 wounds in combat. And potentially the ward save if you've gone for Hellbound. Isn't the armor on the crew, not on the artillery? I think it just says equipment, hand weapons, heavy armor. Yeah, it's just the unit has it, right? I'm pretty sure that is how that interaction works. I'd have to double check again. But it's mostly melee where I think that matters, to be fair. Okay. Chaos Dwarf Hell Cannon. This is a Hell Cannon, but with the ability, I think, did he give it Hellbound? He said he was going to change something. He did something different to it, and then I think he walked it back. So I think he might have already taken Hellbound off it. Oh no, Hellbound's on there, but he says he's going to take it off because that doesn't go in line with how he wants to balance things. A Hell Cannon is unfortunately one of the most unplayable units in the game. Rob's done the maths on it, and it kills itself in 2/3 of your games. He's also played multiple tournaments with it, so he is experienced in this case. But yeah, it's just bad. It's very likely to kill itself if you don't know what Hell Cannon does. The good thing is it's got a large blast template, strength 5 AP2, which is strength 10 AP5 on the central hull, and it's D3 damage. And what I missed is that the D3 damage is all of the time. I knew this, but I'd forgotten it because it's just such a bad unit. However, theoretically, it ruins the day of ogres or minotaurs, which is kind of funny. However, if you misfire, the misfire table is brutal. On a 1, if you misfire, it explodes. It breaks loose. It explodes in 3d6, and all units take d6 strength 5 hits with AP1, and then it's removed from play. If you roll a 5 to a 6 on the misfire, it moves 3d6 inches. It says as if it was subject to the random movement special rule, and as if there's the compulsory move subphase. So technically, you don't have to move it, but the written way that it's intended is that you have to run it somewhere, right, and theoretically get it into combat. Yeah, it's just not It's got 4 attacks, which is funny, but it's just not good. And if your artillery piece has a 2 in 3 chance to kill itself, and then also like eat stuff around it, it's not good. Oh, I forgot the reason. So it's on a massive base, which is kind of by the by, and it has impact hits, which is funny. But it has a rule where during the start of turn subphase of each of your turns, make a leadership test. If you fail, you misfire. It's not good. It's really not good. Really not good. Anyway. Remember, because it's a war machine, it can't charge. So the only way you can get it into combat is through the random move. Just to be 100% clear about why you don't want to just deploy it on the line and have it as some sort of like weird frontline shooty monster. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the artillery. The Chaos Dwarf Hell Cannon is there. Amy is still pushing for votes. If you haven't voted, I'm not going to tell you what to vote, but make sure you voted on the Bone Grinder as to which tier it goes into. I'm not going to say where it should go, but I don't disagree with how the tiers are looking so far. It's not a war machine, it's a behemoth. Is it really? Have I missed that? Oh, that's interesting. That's funny, because that means that you, prior to this update, well, I guess it wasn't available for Chaos Dwarves, but you wouldn't have been able to re-roll the dice on it, because it's not a war machine. I missed that. I missed that as a behemoth. It's still bad, to be clear. But maybe the only way you run it is, yeah, like, you yeet it forwards as fast as possible. The problem is it moves 3 inches, right? So, good luck. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move on from the Hell Cannon, because I don't want to think about it anymore, and I don't want you to accidentally convince me that maybe there's an angle to play it. Because then I'll play it, and then I'll be sad. It's about 150 points too many. Yeah, you might have to pay me to take it. That might be the way to get there. Okay, Iron Demon. Iron Demon. This is still good. I feel like prior to, in the previous Renegades 1.5, I'd have put the Iron Demon here. Top of competitive staple. I think I probably wouldn't put it there now. Not because it's got worse. In fact, I think it's got a little bit better. And to talk about how it's got better, Hellbound is now a ward save all of the time. So instead of just being a ward save against non-magical attacks, you get it for all of your attacks. And also Steam Skullcracker is more interesting now. So you still have to pay points to upgrade it. You can replace the gun with a Skullcracker, which takes you from impact hits d6+1 to impact hits d6+2. I don't find you get off the impact hits very often with it. Maybe this is just the way that I play it because I'm using the shooting one. But I feel like usually the value comes in the stomp attacks. And like once per game, you'll probably get the impact hits. And a d6+1 is usually enough in that situation. However, in this document, you get d6+1 impact stomp attacks instead of just d3+1 on the stomps if you pay for the Skullcracker. So now you're actually getting a pretty big upgraded output. Like an additional... What do you go from? From an average of 3 to 4.5, so 1.5 extra impact hits. It's more swingy. A D6 is obviously more swingy than a D3, but it is just more output. So, yeah, I think there's an argument to take the Skullcracker. Here's my pitch. I think that the Iron Demon is just really good, and it fills a niche in the army. If you're playing against lists that don't want to fight fair and don't want to come in and just, like, run at you, or if you want to force someone to, like, close the gap in playing the footsie way, who charges first, an Iron Demon does that really well. So I think whether or not the Skullcracker is better or worse than the Steam Cannonade in terms of just, like, raw power, I think what the Steam Cannonade brings, which is an 18-inch organ gun, and you've got access to, like, reasonable amounts of rerolls to get the upgrades there, and your Ballistic Skill 4, I think the Steam Cannonade is very good at filling a gap in the way that the Chaos Dwarf list plays. So for me, I'm probably always just taking the Cannonade. But if you really want to take the Skullcracker, I can see more of an argument for it. I'd expect 2 of them in every list. The only thing that, like, I love running a pair of them. I missed having a second one this weekend. I would have liked a second. Partially for the consistency of, like, one of them rolls a 2 and a misfire on your number of shots, and then the other one rolls a 10 and an 8. You're like, oh, cool, between the two of you, you've managed to do the average of what you should have done. I think there's more argument to not take them, because when I was thinking about what I would drop, I would say previously I'd have said I would never drop the Iron Demons, but now, like, if I want to fit in artillery, you have to drop something. It's probably one of the Iron Demons, or maybe both the Iron Demons. But I think there's an interesting list where you just go stodgy infantry for scoring, double Iron Demon, characters to support with spells or whatever, and then as much artillery as possible. I want to try that sort of playstyle. But yeah, I think this is still competitive staple, but probably like here, probably. You know what? Yeah. I think it would have been here, actually, realistically. Prior to the update, it would have been here, and now I think it's here, which is still very, very good. What change would make the Bone Grinder worth playing? That is a very difficult question to answer. I think if it wasn't... The problem is, like, we're in a canon meta, and this is especially true for the UK. It's so easy to kill it at range, and you get so many points out of it. I think if you could get it to combat consistently, then the fact that it is a big chunk of points that can die is less terrifying. But I just don't think there's good ways to get it there without investing way more points, at which point you're like, well, that was not worth the value of doing so. That's kind of where I feel like. Minus 150 points. 150 points for a Bone Grinder might be a little cheap. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm so anti-Bone Grinder pilled that it's hard to argue for or against. We've got the Chaos Giant. I don't like a Chaos Giant. I don't like a Giant in general. However, I think the Chaos Giant is a little bit more palatable because you can pay 20 points to give it a 6-up regen. You might argue, just don't do that. But because the way regen works is it's the wounds you save, you get to save on again. You get like a recursion effect on how much value you get from the regen. So if you're thinking about this purely from the perspective of like, I'm trying to keep it alive from cannons, a 6 wound giant with no regen will die on average to 2 cannons. You'll need a third cannon, or like a third cannon hit to kill it if you've got a 6-up regen. Because all you need to do is, if they're averaging 6 wounds into you, you only need to save 1 of those wounds. And then you're fine. So, yeah, I think having a giant that you can pay for the regen on makes it a little bit more palatable to me. I still don't love it, and it's very expensive. I think it's like 210 or 220. I can't remember exactly how much a giant is off the top of my head because it's not something I ever want to run. But I think it goes from like the bottom of week to the top of week would be my take on that in terms of where you're at because you can take the regen. Best of the Giants. Yeah, I think it's probably the best of the Giants. Cool. Phil says, looking at this, blunderbusters for core, bolt throwers and special, and hell cannons for rare. If you're going to a tournament and we can be matched, then yes, please. Otherwise, no. I think all Giants should just have 8 wounds. All Dragons already have 8 wounds. I mean... yeah, I don't know. I think monsters are in a weird spot. Like, non-ridden monsters are such a weird unit to, like, try and balance without making them oppressive, because they're more spammable than dragons. Dragons are already, or have been a problem this edition, but they are held in check to an extent because of challenge rules. If you could do that with monsters that were more spammable, because they cost less points and you can take them in different slots, I think we suddenly might have some issues. Yeah, I don't know. Hard to say. All right. Well, we're coming to the end, and we are going to have to end the poll. 41 of you voted. Thank you very much. Even with Amy doing her best to throw some bribery into the ring, we do leave it in the weak category as opposed to the competitive staple that people were going for. And I think weak is probably where I'd put it. And I'd probably put it something like this. I think I'd actually rather see it than the Hobgoblin Bolt Thrower, because I don't feel like this does anything, whereas I can see this doing something.
Bone Grinder, weak, but playable. Heard it here first. Close order exclusive.
I do sometimes wonder what I did in a past life to deserve the psychological torture that Amy puts me through. But thank you, Amy, for your consistent support. I appreciate you. But yeah, I mean, like I've lost a tournament game to one. I felt like I whiffed, but that's old world, right? Sometimes the dice don't go in your favor, and then the thing that is difficult or like too expensive for what it does gets value. There's things that are bad, which is like a hell cannon, I think is bad. And then there are things that are not worth the opportunity cost to the point of being like really harming your list. And I think those are two different things. And the Bone Grinder is actually on the table. Some of the things it does are kind of scary. You can even, as we were talking about last night, or what day were we on, Tuesday? Yeah, as we were talking about last night, you can remove ethereal models with one of the effects that the Bone Grinder has. It doesn't have magical attacks, but one of its effects on its table is just remove models after an initiative test. Remove, like, ethereal stops you from being wounded. So, yeah. But it's too many points. The Bolt Throw is a waste of 45 points. The Bone Grinder gives your opponent 300 points. Yeah, well, that's like we're arguing as to which is the least. I don't know. The least. No, I haven't got an analogy for that. It's too late in the day. It's too late in the day. Remy says, "What would you see as the three main ways of playing Chore?" I think you still go for the T7 spam. That's like the very obvious one. I think you can do some interesting stuff with an infantry Death Star. With you could build it in different ways. The Castellan makes them interesting. I think you go for the Infernal Iron Sworn as like the brick. You either steal the shadows or you elementalism, depending on what you're trying to do. And then there's also the artillery spam list, where you car park and you just drop as many templates on people as possible. And then there's variations of those three. But that's like the obvious three builds in my mind. Is there an army builder which is using the Renegades upgrade yet? If you haven't already, refresh the stream, and there is a website called ingood.com. It seems to be someone's passion project. It is lacking a little bit in terms of quality of life updates, but it has all of the Renegade updates on there. So I've been using it, and I do want to, when I talk about the Chaos Dwarf list that I wrote for this weekend in the video coming out on Thursday, I'll make sure to give them a shout out as well, because I just appreciate having that ability to be able to do things as opposed to having to mess around. So yeah, in terms of how this is looking, I actually think this looks like really healthy internal balance. So I wish all of the rule sets that we had this level of internal balance. Would I like the things down here to be better? Sure. Something's always going to be the least good, though. The fact that we've got such a good spread here, and especially the core, if you look at the characters and core, which is obviously kind of what Old World is at this point, you've got a lot of really good stuff up there. You've got some compelling special choices up there as well. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff. Imagine pinning a link to the site you've mentioned multiple times this stream. You can... Hey, Talon, it's in the chat. It's in the fucking description. Just refresh the stream. That's all you have to do. Can't be coming after me. I've done the work. Anyway, on that note,